All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Rockville studio, Rockville, Maryland studio, where I
Home
am
of
visiting.
Georgetown Prep. Yeah, baby.
Well,
Loyal.
I think they would, John, I know haven't been around here in a while and things are changing, but
Drinking my
drinking
Mountain
a
Dew,
Mountain
man.
Dew?
The Georgetown Prep, Little Hoyas, let's go.
Oh my God. Oh my God. You've inspired me to get a Mountain Dew when I leave
Boy.
here. But FYI, I'm pretty sure because I grew up in 20852, which was Rockville, but I think they've renamed it officially
The
North
Wade Flint
Bethesda.
Mall.
Yeah. But now White Flint Mall is gone. You don't even know that?
I thought you bought it.
I mean, the Lerner family would have sold it to me for $1 probably if I had been
Yeah.
willing to give them $1 for it. So now the White Flint Mall metro station is called North Bethesda Metro Station.
Oh, it is. Okay. I have a lot of friends up there too. But
So now I think
back
that's
when
called
I'm old, that was definitely like Rockville.
Yeah. Oh, I grew up in Rockville, I thought.
Yeah, there he is. Hey, Nick.
All right.
Hello.
Nick, we're talking about what we're really doing is filling air. We're really talking about old school Rockville, Maryland, which is probably only interesting to me and John. So we're glad you're here. Really glad you're here. You can bring up the level of conversation. Yeah, you're not missing much. But I don't believe that John and Nick have met. Is that right?
I don't think so. Hey, Nick.
No. Hi, John. Pleasure to meet you. I've heard
Nice
a lot
to meet
about
you.
you.
Oh, it's great. Good things, I hope.
Yeah. Josh talks very positively of you.
Big
On
fan
camera.
of Josh's work and big fan of anybody who's friends with Josh. So nice meeting you, Nick.
Cool. Nick, this is, a little bit in classic, entrepreneur fashion here. We're breaking our own mold here and thought that it would be fun to have you come on the show since we released your latest show on Breaking the Grade. It was about you and your success with the EdSales Elevation Experience. And, as you and I know, and John and I believe, we don't need to sit here and talk about the EdSales Elevation Experience. We'd rather talk about, the wins that you've gotten and kind of what has happened in your business. But before we get into that, if you can give everybody an idea of who you are, where you're from, and if you drink Mountain Dew. You missed the fact that John is chugging a Mountain Dew like a 16-year-old lacrosse player.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I used to drink Mountain Dew a lot. That was one of my go-to drinks, like especially back in college. Had the gas station right across from my apartment, so it was very easy to just go grab a cup. Can't say I've done it in a while though.
Brutal. I'll just tell you, what I like better than even a Mountain Dew in a bottle is I love a Mountain Dew in the cup with like a ton of ice, which I know I'm getting less Mountain Dew. But so now we've gone from Rockville to Mountain Dew. Yeah, there you go. Nick,
I'll bet you Fitness Monica drinks Mountain Dew for sure.
She's not gonna like that. Fitness Monica's not gonna like that you're drinking Mountain Dew. But Katie Kavanaugh, do you like it? Or is it a question mark like Mountain Dew? Can I have some? Or Mountain Dew like ooh? But Nick, lead us off here and tell us kind of about you.
Yeah. Hi everybody. My name is Nick Farrenkopf, currently founder and CEO of Wibly. So I spent a lot of time as a private tutor, in high school math and science. One of the things that I always saw was students always had a very disconnected understanding of information, especially when it came to abstract concepts like math. And so one of the things that I did is I used to kind of draw these diagrams on paper showing students how all this information kind of fit together. And ever since, those experiences, I really wanted to do this like at a larger scale. So I ended up creating the Wibly learning platform. And so we use knowledge maps to help students gain more confidence and independence in their studies. With all of the move to virtual learning nowadays and everything being very internet-based, a lot of that learning is really placed on the student. And it's kind of difficult to kind of explore these textbooks, some of these very complicated resources. They're very overwhelming. So a lot of what I do is kind of paring it down into the smaller pieces that students need to know to help them gain a little bit more clarity on their learning journey. So I'm currently based in Bay Area right now, but I come from Salt Lake City, Utah. I was there for a bit. I was in Texas for a little bit. So I've kind of been in a few places.
What got you interested in this work, Nick? Give me a little bit more about your why.
Yeah, so one of the things that I always loved about tutoring was those aha moments, those light bulbs, where student, is really struggling with something, then something just kind of clicks and you see their eyes light up, they get all excited. And so I always knew that like part of tutoring, that's what I wanted to do long term. I love the idea of teaching, I love the idea of learning, but never really wanted to be in the classic classroom sense. So kind of explored different careers for a little bit. I was a software developer for a while. I liked machine learning. It wasn't until a couple years ago that I kind of discovered entrepreneurship, and I realized, wow, I can really make my own thing. I can kind of do what I want. So I took my favorite parts of the tutoring software world and I stitched them together, and I have been having so much fun helping learners ever since.
It's awesome.
It's when we met though, Nick, I mean, you're a very positive guy, and I've never not seen you with a smile on your face, but talk about where you were, before, you kind of joined the EdSales Elevation Experience community, kind of started coming to the events. And again, I'm not looking for an endorsement of 3E, more about just kind of where you were, as an entrepreneur, which starts off, we've all been there. John's been there. I've been there. You've been there. It's so exciting, and you're gonna conquer the world. You're gonna figure everything out, and then you're eventually gonna hit massive roadblocks, and they happen. So where were you when you met, and where are you now?
Yeah. The roadblocks are definitely part of the journey, as I have definitely come to learn. But for me, I spent a lot of time on the tutoring side of things. So I helped students directly. I never quite interacted with the teacher side of things, and I never interacted with the administration side. So definitely jumping into having an edtech tool and like eventually selling to schools and like working with some of these kind of more broader organizations was experience that I didn't have a year and a half ago. And I think that's one of the biggest things for me was that I didn't have experience with the administration. I didn't really have experience on the sales side of things. I've come very much from like a technical software background where I was always like, oh, I don't need to network with people. I don't need to sell. I don't need to work on those skills because they're never going to be useful. And then I discovered entrepreneurship and realized, wow, that was totally wrong. So I think about a year and a half ago, a year and a half ago was where I really decided that I needed more experience and more knowledge in this area. So I think getting that sort of preparation for jumping into this space, I think was very important. Trying to understand, how these systems are set up, how do I reach out to people, who do I reach out to? Like there were just so many questions that I asked and would try and research and sometimes get an answer, but nothing was really ever clear or structured or organized. So that was definitely a big learning experience for me. But I think a year and a half later, like I've spoken to a lot more people on the admin side of things now. I've gone to conferences with what I feel to be the correct intent of how to position myself. And it's really starting to come along. Honestly, like these past couple months has been all of the traction kind of stuck together. So it's been real exciting.
That's great. We have a saying here at Penn GSE, Nick, which is never let a crisis go to waste. And as a major research university back in the pandemic, we had that moment, like that OS moment, where we had to bring our entire operation online. And our dean and our vice dean we all sat down and said, let's never let a crisis go to waste. We got 2 billion learners going online now. We've been talking about digital learning and online tutoring for a long time. And we said, we're not going to panic. We're going to look at this as an opportunity to support students given where we are with the pandemic. That led to emergency appropriations to the tune of $190 billion. And wow, a lot of digital software ed tech platforms, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people in the tutoring space made out well as they were leaning in to support students as they were struggling with online, virtual, at-home learning. We find ourselves at another moment where we have to say, how do we let this crisis not go to waste? And that's this dawn of AI, this moment where we have a lot of questions with regard to the Department of Education and federal policy with regard to education, where everybody's kind of freaking out. How do you reconcile that as a business with the turbulence that we're seeing in the space? And how do you kind of flip it from, oh my gosh, I'm really nervous, I'm an entrepreneur, is this going to affect me negatively, a deficit, and think of it through the lens of an asset? Maybe there's an opportunity here to Trump-proof or administration-proof a solution and keep pushing forward.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And honestly, that's something that a couple people have asked me recently, like, one being my mom, always very caring. But I think one of the things that's very important is that just because things are changing doesn't mean people don't need to learn anymore. Like, people still need to study, people still need to be educated. That part doesn't go away. So it's not a question of, is it disappearing? It's where are they moving to instead? And so I think that's where kind of one of the things that I've pivoted towards a little bit more is on those kind of like alternative education spaces. So where are people going after their public school program because they don't get what they need in their normal classroom schedule? This is often like some of these after-school programs or maybe private tutoring. You have homeschooling that's been growing for a while and it has kind of skyrocketed recently. And so I think the need is still there. And the changes, make it a little bit harder to navigate, but people still want tools. People still want innovation with that. So I think it's still a place that's a little scary. It's a little bit less known how the future is going to move forward, but there's still a lot of opportunity there. So I'm generally a positive person, so I'll only ever say it'll be fine.
Yeah. What has been a couple of your aha moments on the EdSales Elevation experience? Like, what has happened as you've kind of journeyed through this training, this mentorship, this cohort, this group feeling where you're like, wow, I hadn't thought of that. I mean, there's a lot of training out there. There's a lot of coaching, but what Josh provides is something incredibly unique. What was an aha moment that you had during this experience?
Yeah. I think I've had two kind of aha moments recently that have really, really clicked, where I know I've listened to Josh say a lot of things before, and I could repeat it back to him. But recently, things have just kind of set in stone, and like my eyes got all excited. For one, it was this idea of the ideal client, and I think that is something that I struggled with a lot back in the program. Because where I had come from was I want this to be like a very general learning platform. So I wasn't super comfortable with like really refining it down and targeting one set of educators or learners. So at the time, I had just like kind of chosen high school math teachers, and I never really felt super comfortable with that. Like, I knew it was something that I wanted to help with, but I feel like I could do better. So one of the things I used to do was when I'm researching people, I have like a spreadsheet of people I need to reach out to and do a little bit of research on them. And I would rate them on a scale of like 1 to 5. How well do they fit this idea of an ideal client? And for a lot of them, it'd be like 2 to 3s, sometimes a 4s, maybe occasionally a 5. So I felt like I did a lot of this research and like I sent a lot of these messages and didn't really get a lot of responses. And so that was something where it was a little bit discouraging at first. It was like, okay, I got enough responses where I can, build my MVP a little bit more, develop that out. We released it last year. I started doing more user research interviews or more like raise your hand campaigns where I'm talking with the educators. And one of the things I really tried to do more is that idea of listening. And so, one time someone would say, hey, okay, cool, this is a really cool tool. Like, it would be very helpful for neurodiverse students. And, in my head, I was like, oh, yeah, that kind of makes sense. That's kind of how I was headed, but never really thought about it that way. And then, I heard it again the second time. Hey, this would be good for neurodiverse learners. Like, okay. And then I heard it a third time. At the third time, I was like, okay, people keep telling me this. Maybe I should delve into it a little more. So I did some research. I went to conferences. I talked to people in this space. And I think that's really where things started to change for me, and that's where really the traction started to show up. Because now when I'm drawing out this spreadsheet full of people I need to reach out to, everybody's a 5. And I think the first time that happened, that's really when it clicked. I was like, oh, okay, so this is what Josh means when I find my ideal client. When I reach out to them, they should resonate with what I'm doing immediately. It's not something they have to think about. I think that is probably one of the bigger ones recently where, it took a little while, but it finally clicked.
Yeah, that idea of I've been leaning into this idea of the perfect client, Nick. I've taken ideal client and started to use my words as perfect, which I think one of my least favorite words is dovetails, but I think that dovetails nicely with what you were just saying. Carrie asked a question here: does ideal client include someone who is willing to try something new? Carrie, it's a good question. One of the things that we talk about inside the EdSales Elevation Experience, I think John and I have had this conversation as well, is Carrie, think of yourself as a window washer. You wash windows for a living. And let's just say you're in the wonderful city of Philadelphia, big, beautiful, tall buildings. And you wash windows and you see 2 buildings, one of them that has clean windows and one that has dirty windows. In my opinion, you should walk up to the building with clean windows to try and sell to them because they believe in what you're doing. They care about what you're doing. They love a clean window and that smell. Carrie, the question is that you're asking is, should they be willing to try something new? Of course. But if you've got somebody who's already, bought into what you're doing, you might be able to find out what challenges they're facing with their current situation, and can you help fix those? So you don't have to necessarily convert them into believers. John, that's my answer. And I include Philadelphia.
I think it's a great answer. I've heard you use the analogy before, and I absolutely agree. Before I kind of dive in on that and go deeper, responding to what Nick said, again, I heard something he said that in terms of a lesson learned, which I think is really great. I always find it interesting and very cool when I work with some of Josh's customers and people that he coaches, where they use really cool analogies. I mean, he just used a window washing analogy. I love when we can go back to just everything I learned in kindergarten, right? So what you just said, Nick, is something that I've been working with my adolescent son about, right? When he gets into a situation at school and he needs to navigate, a bullying situation, a social anxiety situation, a situation where he needs to talk to a teacher about maybe retaking a test or getting extra support, or maybe working with a tutor. Be interested instead of interesting, right? It's really easy to try to dominate a conversation or try to dominate a situation by being the most interesting person in the room. It's quite another skill to be genuinely interested in, what you're doing, how you're doing it. Josh and I in Austin, Texas at South by Southwest really tried to facilitate a meetup through that lens of being interested instead of interesting. Yeah, we talked about the services and the support that we provide, but we were really trying to facilitate a bunch of Nicks in a room, trying to talk about, what interests them, what are they trying to accomplish as it relates to problems that they're trying to address and solve. So I love when we talk analogies, and business advice is kind of extracted from life advice, which I think Josh does really well when working with his mentees and his coaching cohorts.
Thanks. I appreciate that. And I guess you caught me for a second. I was, going back to this event where, as John said, there was many Nicks in the room. We didn't know how many were going to show up. We were hoping there would be, 1 or 2. And there was probably 130 of you, Nick. And it was just like such a cool event from so many different angles, because John kind of got the opportunity. I ran with it a little bit. We brought in this guy, Moby, who's like a professional event guy, MC, and then we didn't know who's showing up. Then all these people showed up, and people are still talking about this thing, and so it was so
Can you imagine
cool.
if we
So,
brought cases of
and
Mountain
John,
Dew?
oh my God, we'd still be there. We'd be jumping out of windows.
We didn't need any
so
Mountain
great,
Dew that
Nick.
day. That was really awesome.
We didn't need any Mountain Dew. Nick,
wait.
John
I
also
have to
is.
press a little bit here, Josh. Talk more about ideal versus perfect client. What do you mean by that?
When I start to talk to people about the ideal client, which is one of the first things I do, I think I almost feel like at least in my own mind, speaking of metaphors, I feel like they just take the curtains down, and they're like, they glossed over here, okay, this dude's talking about the ideal client. But I can remember I was doing hot yoga, Bikram yoga on H Street, in Northeast DC. And this instructor talked about perfection not being possible when it comes to poses in yoga. And I believe perfection is possible when it comes to an ideal client, because it is just a perfect relationship. Yes. Is it going to have its challenges? For sure. But in terms of, I can help you and you want to be helped in the way that I can help you, that's the feeling that we're going for. And that's what I think Nick is feeling now. And it makes those yeses come to you, and it makes the business feel so much better, and you don't feel like you're selling. And Nick, John, Josh, none of us really want to sell. We want to help. And when we find that perfect client, there's no selling involved. It's just a matter of time and money. And either that's there and that's great, or we wait and we provide value while we're waiting. That to me is a perfect client.
Yeah, it makes me think about the perfect running back in the NFC Championship this year. When you want to talk about perfection. No, we won't go there. We won't go to sports now. But something that triggers and conjures for me, Josh, to keep it kind of serious here is this idea of I see it a little bit as perfection is in the imperfection. The prescription is non-prescription. When we talk about the mentoring that we do in Catalyst at Penn GSE, we like to say we have a framework, and we think that framework of providing mentorship is based on a theory of action or theory of change, a logic model that will do a lot to support you. But we try to say we're not going to prescribe exactly what you should do. Our prescription is non-prescription. We give you frameworks, we give you ideas, we give you things to test out, but it's non-prescriptive in terms of you staying within some guardrails, but really trying different things here and there. So it's interesting for you to describe ideal and perfect. It's interesting for me to think about that, perfection and imperfection, being able to, I consider making mistakes, which a lot of people would say, well, that's imperfect. Being perfect, being comfortable with being imperfect becomes perfection. So I don't know if that resonates with you, but it's really good food for thought.
I think more does it resonate with Nick, because you went through the process, and it's not easy. The EdSales Elevation Experience is not easy. It's not designed to be easy. So, but there were challenges. It was not like a smooth path. So talk about that.
I think two things really jump out to me: this idea of the perfect client and the idea of the framework. Because I think something that really, really helped me understand it is perfect client for right now. That doesn't mean you're limiting yourself to just this type of client forever. I think one of the things that especially like early stage entrepreneurs need to do is that just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. Like, you have such a limited amount of time. So choosing the path forward that gives you like the least resistance. And I really like that idea of perfect client, because those are the types of people who you will have these seamless conversations with, where things will just kind of flow forward on their own. And I also like that idea of the framework, because it doesn't mean that what you're doing is going to be exactly what they need and nothing is going to change about it. you need to kind of tweak what you're doing to fit their particular context at the time. Maybe they're covering a different set of topics. Maybe they want a little bit more like reassurance in, how you're handling educational data. So I really like that idea of here's a framework for how we can move forward. Let's kind of work on it together and then see kind of what direction it heads.
Nice. This show is as much about Nick and the EdSales Elevation Experience as it is John and what he's doing at Penn. So John, talk to people about what's going on at Penn these days, and in less than 2 months we'll all be there for your big event, which
so Catalyst of Penn GSE advances innovation, impact, and equity in worldwide education. Do it through a continuum of programming, including our upcoming second annual Innovation Summit, June 6th. Look for details. You can hit that QR code. Being part of Catapult and Catalyst, you'll get news and information on our upcoming events. We have our signature program, which is the Milken Penn GSE Business Plan Competition, which is now in its 16th year. We're in the process of selecting our semifinalists now. News on that will come out soon. But yeah, we have a bunch of programs and a continuum program that supports education entrepreneurs, through the lens of leadership, product, market, and fundraising. You can find more hitting that QR code and signing up for advanced membership. But one other point I want to make, because again, a little bit of humbly bragging on you, Josh. I hear these words, and when I can hear, Nick talking about things like signature, thinking about raise your hand, thinking about ideal, and maybe taking it a step further, perfection or the perfect client. What I really hear in a lot of your mentees and your clients is one word, and that is intention. It's taking the step and pushing forward, no matter what. Not phoning it in, not if it's, you got to make 5 calls, it's not 4, it's 5. And really building around this notion of we can't be passive. We have to take action. We have to be intentional in the work, especially during these crazy times where it's not easy. I know KK's on this line, and she's working through a signature solution with Screen 360 TV. And people are really saying to themselves, like, what am I going to do to deliver something that is going to solve a pain point? Not vitamins, not a nice to have, but something that's really going to deliver a measurable result in a student-centered way. And I just applaud you for pushing your Nicks and the Nicks of the world through that lens of intentionality. I think it's really important, especially right now when we're kind of navigating these turbulent times.
Thank you. Anybody who wants to join Nick or Katie Kavanaugh, who's chimed in here a couple times, you can snap that QR code and join our community. Nick, I'd love for you to talk to Katie. Both you guys are on the West Coast there, and I think could connect on multiple levels.
By the way, Nick, south or north of the Bay, or right in where?
Okay. East Bay.
East Bay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's beautiful out there.
Used to live down in South Bay, but recently moved to East Bay a little bit. And honestly, like, they're both really good places. I've loved both so far.
Yeah, it's beautiful out there.
Nick, you have done a lot of work, and I know that you are working with somebody as well, and that's perfectly fine to talk about, around your LinkedIn. And so I'm wondering if you've taken the time to or can you draw straight lines between the real hard intentional work that John is describing here around LinkedIn, posting, if not every day, multiple times a day. And then you have been one of the most supportive people. If there was an award that they gave out through LinkedIn in terms of the people who comment and are most supportive, it's you, bro. And so you've taken the time to comment. And so can you draw a straight line between leads, grants, opportunities, and just a feeling of clarity? Because my thing today about LinkedIn is it's also just a canvas where you can test what works messaging wise. right? So talk about the work you've been doing around LinkedIn and what you've seen from that work.
Yeah, I really like that idea of intention because I think that's something that I've been really trying to use when doing things. Before, prior to the 3E experience, it was just kind of like, oh, I'll do things, see what happens, and then maybe try to draw some conclusions from that. But nowadays, I have some intent. Why am I posting on LinkedIn? Why am I commenting on these particular people? Because a lot of it is really just kind of getting yourself out there and getting people to notice you. And I think one of the things that really surprised me is I have a steady stream of people kind of reaching out. Either it's like, hey, I liked the comments you said on this post, or hey, I like how you're focused on like neurodiversity for students. And it's been definitely an eye-opening experience to have put myself out there and then actually have results behind it. So it's been really great, kind of learning how to navigate all of the LinkedIn because it was definitely a lot at the start. I was never really somebody to post on social media about what I'm doing, but again, it's having that intention, it's putting yourself out there, it's trying to just get noticed. I think is something that has really helped spread the word about what I'm doing, give me connections, and like expand my network. Like expanding the network has been huge.
And didn't you have an experience? I hope I'm not confusing you with somebody else, but an experience where you got a grant, or somebody reached out, they'd seen what you had written, and reached out about a grant, right? Or a partnership?
Partnership, yes. Not the grant part. So that actually got me
Okay.
one of my first partnerships. Was somebody had connected with me on LinkedIn. It was like a nonprofit that supports math educators, and they just sent me a message, something about like, hey, I like what you're doing in the space, and so we just started talking, and then we had a conversation. We met virtually. I didn't really think too much of it at the time because they were generally kind of focused on like earlier stage, but they liked what I was doing enough where we have an official partnership now. It's one of those things where because I was posting, because I was, kind of putting myself out there, people are reaching out. And it works sometimes. Like it doesn't always do exactly what you want, but it gets you what you need.
Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah.
Right, John?
I've been working.
Yeah.
One of our past episodes, we were talking about being tired and exhausted, and boy, being in higher ed these days, it's pretty exhausting. You're not sure what the next post is going to be, or what the next research grant that's going to be frozen, or what the next thing is. What's going to happen next in terms of my role here at Penn GSE and with a lot of my colleagues and team members. So it's tough. What I've been trying to do, talk about intention, is like when I have my list of 10 things to do, and I get tired, and I even feel like I've had a good day, I've had a full day. I'm always trying to end the day with just 2 more things to check off the list. And when I really do that, the next morning I feel so great. Like I could have made the decision, I could have given myself the break, and I think rest and a break is important, but I just got it done, and I pushed through that, and tomorrow I'm going to be a little bit more ahead. I don't know, Nick, do you have that feeling in terms of the intention behind the work that has to be done? Are you feeling a little bit stressed these days given these crazy times?
Oh, absolutely. I think one of the things that I've started to do that's really helped out with that is putting together, honestly, just like a simple list of things to check off. Like, oh, I need to respond to this person, schedule a meeting. And I think that has really helped out with kind of the mentality of not being so overwhelmed, where I can look at that list and see, okay, hey, look at all the things I've already done. I'm that much closer to being done with like the work for this week. And every day it's like, okay, just check off like a couple items on this list, and then maybe I can go work on something else. I think that that idea of making sure to keep track of all the things you are doing in such a crazy time when there's always an overwhelming amount of things to do has definitely helped me be a little bit, or helped maintain that positivity and like optimism when there's like the constant changes, the constant fear. I'm like, but hey, at least I scheduled a message today. scheduled a meeting. So that works out.
Absolutely.
It's true. It's this idea, I think, especially when it comes to lead generation, of this is like a gym.
Another analogy. Here we go. That's awesome.
Spend 15, well, it's number 4 of the day, right? Just spend 15, 20 minutes a day commenting or posting or reaching out to people and seeing if you can help or give them value or they're up for meeting. Katie asked here, is your business nonprofit or for profit?
Yeah, so we're looking to sell more to those educational organizations for use by the teachers and students. One I think one story I kind of want to point out is that idea of just doing a little bit every day, and that has also kind of really helped pay out. Because sometimes I'll send somebody a message on LinkedIn and they won't reply. Like I'll see that they've read it, but they didn't respond to it. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I'll go follow like whatever they're posting, and sometimes they'll post about something I can relate to, so I'll add a comment like, hey, I used to be a tutor as well. Hey, I also do like dog fostering on the side. And that has worked out surprisingly well, where after I post that, people then go look back at the message and reply to what I said earlier. So it's really cool to see that it work. You know, sometimes it is that grind of you have to be there every day, just do a little bit here and there. And then sometimes you see the work you're doing pay off.
I'm out of analogies and metaphors, so I don't have much more to say. But you know, Nick, the last thing I wanted to ask was kind of what does the future hold for you and for the company and for Wibly? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, I'd love to. So we've got a lot of recent traction. We have a couple partnerships in the works. We have a couple early adopters who are looking to use it over the next school year. And so we're really starting to scale up, like especially this summer, we've got a couple pilots with a couple different orgs. So we're going to be working with them to get feedback on the tool, make some changes to build out a much more robust version or a much more robust MVP for the start of the school year. So we've got like the path forward, got all the stepping stones in place. And I know what at least like the next couple stepping stones are. So I'll work on those and then try and lace them out more as I make a little bit more progress.
And Nick, are you doing any work in the DC public schools in Josh's neck of the woods?
Not yet. Public schools are something I'm prepping for, not this upcoming school year, but the next school year. So definitely love to, you know, have a conversation about that sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. We do a lot of work with DC public schools, as Josh will tell you, and specifically with City Tutor. And so, you know, to the degree that, you know, again, I talk about analogies, constant thought of others. You know, when you get stressed out, you always want to see if you can help other people. When you get into that mode and need some introductions or want some insight into how to get into that ecosystem, who's doing some really amazing things with high impact, high dosage tutoring, I'd love to help you out there and make some introductions.
Awesome, that'd be fantastic. Thanks.
Yeah, always.
Cool, Nick. Listen, you're going to be fine. I'm happy to talk to your mom if you'll talk to my mom and tell them that we're fine. And by the way, you've got John Gamba on your side. I know I got John Gamba on my side, so you can tell our moms that we're definitely going to be fine. You went through the EdSales Elevation Experience with always a smile on your face, you know, always ready to tackle anything that came your way, and did a fantastic job. And so I was so happy to interview you and see how things are going. I'm reading what Carrie's saying here. There you go. Check that out.
She said the East Bay. Yeah, there you go. That's awesome.
That's neat.
Carrie,
What comes around goes around, Carrie.
Pips rewards. Yeah, cool, Carrie. Thank you. Wonderful to have you join, Carrie. Thank you.
Josh and Nick, I need a favor from you, though. Will you reach out to my mom and tell her that I'm going to be okay? Because she's worried.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'll put together a WhatsApp group and we'll share and we'll pull our moms in there and say, we're all doing fantastic. And I'll throw an analogy out there, metaphor.
Tell her that we're all going to be playing Wordle. That'll get her attention.
Wordle.
Your mom will like that? Okay, good. Good tips. Good tips here. Now, seriously, everybody, you know, we will all be okay if we support each other. It's turbulent times, as John said. and continues to say, and we can think about that, but we can help each other. And Nick's always up for that, I know. And hopefully Nick will talk to Katie and Carrie. John and I are always here to help anybody. We're value first. And so if you would like any help, of course, regarding your business, that's the first place to start for us, but we'd help any way we could. And appreciate everybody who continues to join. Our numbers are going up here, so more people are joining, and we appreciate that. And so I think that's it for now. Nick, John, anybody else want to chime in, or do we just need to go straight to our
Cheers,
moms?
y'all.
Cheers.
I'm gonna get a Mountain Dew. I'm gonna get a Mountain Dew later today. Mountain Dew's on the house.
Let's all stick together, just as Carrie just said. Talk to you all soon.
Yeah, thanks